Greetings and salutations, everyone. It has been a while since we've done a video like this one, where you have just my hands and some paper in front of it. So we're going to do this today because, as you can tell by the top of this particular paper and the title of the video, we're going to talk about the cost of everything. And I figured this would be a good video to shoot while I was not on the ranch or on the farm or anything like that. I'm actually on a business trip right now, so I had to do some other things. So this seemed like a good topic. We're going to talk about the cost of everything. And I'm going to put things out here. You might be thinking I'm talking about the cost of everything for the homestead, like what the house cost, what the property cost, and stuff like that. That's not what I'm meaning. I'm talking about the cost of everything. Stick around and I'll show you. First, let me go ahead and get this colored in. I want that to look better. Alright, so there is the cost of everything, the title. What do I mean by this? I mean, we're going to talk about the cost of everything, like we said. So what is that cost? Well, everything costs three things. Everything costs some sort of wealth or money, effort, and time. Let me get some color on those. So, everything costs wealth, effort, and time. Now, if we're looking at it, a lot of the times when we think of having to pay for something, we're thinking about wealth. Because wealth, as we think of it, can equal many things. Wealth can most of the time mean money, but it can also mean stuff or physical possessions. Now, I don't know if I spelled that right, but most of the time, people are thinking about money, currency. Those are the things they think about as being what wealth is. But wealth, and especially money or currency, is just a concentrated form of these other two things, effort and time. That is why money is looked at as being so important for people, when really, I would argue that these two are just as important, and one of them being the most important. Now, money and stuff and physical possessions, you're going to pay those for things. If you live in an economy at all that has its own currency, you will pay with money. You will pay with a representation of your effort and time spent. But effort can be equally beneficial to pay. Effort is the work you put in on something in a physical or mental form, and it can be a mental form of effort. It takes both physical and mental to give forth effort. Some requires more mental than physical, and some requires more physical than mental. For example, a doctor gives effort and time in exchange for the wealth paid to him by the hospital or clinic or wherever he works. However, that work is mostly mental and some physical. The work in physical, I misspelled physical. I spelled it right up there. That was silly of me. Okay, the work in physical form is that walking around and seeing people and writing notes and so on and so forth. But the mental form would be all of the education and him employing it to be able to benefit you in exchange for in exchange for wealth, in exchange for some of your effort and time aggregated into a currency, a central currency. Now, this right here will get you pretty far. In past generations, it got you a lot further, but it'll get you pretty far. If you're willing to do a lot of this physical stuff, you can actually get paid pretty well, because plumbers and welders and people like that, they get paid a lot of money, but that's mainly physical work, and there's some mental involved. Now, there is definitely some mental involved with a plumber or a welder. They have to do calculations regarding metal and soldering components, lots of memory of things like that. Arguably less so than a doctor in our example. Now, wealth is actually a lot easier to come by than a lot of people think, because it is represented by so much. Money, stuff in general, physical possessions, those are wealth. Mostly money being thought about, of course. Effort is fairly easy to come by because that's something you always have. Now here, in the cost of everything, is where we start to see the most important thing, which is time. Time is the only irreplaceable resource of limited quantity possessed by all in limited amounts. Sorry about that, camera trouble. All right. I'm going to start over on time. Time is an irreplaceable resource of limited quantity possessed by all in limited amounts. And the reason I put limited twice is because it is quite limited, and it is possessed by all in those limited amounts. You see, gold, a money, a stuff, a physical possession, that's obtainable. And while we think gold is rare, it's not really that rare. And while we think it is something that is very valuable, we exchange time and effort to get it. What gives it its value? Really nothing. It's just a mineral. It has value in application, but that's not really why we value it. We value it maybe because it's pretty or stuff like that. Depends on the person. But it's replaceable because there's more gold mined every day. There's more currency and money made and manufactured every day. Effort, you have that in relatively unlimited sources, amounts, considering that you get more every day rather than less. So wealth and effort are far less valuable than time. Time is an irreplaceable resource of limited quantity possessed by all in limited amounts. I should probably put a comma there. That makes more sense. I apologize for having to refix my writing and stuff like that. But when you're trying to spell on camera, it's not always as easy. Now, wealth, effort, and time, why do we break it down into that when we're talking about the cost of everything, when we're talking about everything we need? And how does that apply to this channel and the things we do with it? Well, see, the homestead doesn't have to cost as much wealth as some might think. If you are willing to exchange that for effort and time. Let's say these 10, say you have to spend 10 of these blocks on something you want. This would be something that you would spend more money than effort and time on. This is rather convenient. You can correct my spelling in the comments. This is a convenient transaction. This, if you run your homestead by it, this is going to cost you a lot more wealth. A convenient transaction will cost you a lot more wealth. Now, this is an inconvenient transaction. It's basically not quite reversed. You spend only 2 blocks of wealth, but you have to spend 4 in each effort and time. This is an inconvenient transaction, though still doable. This is what you'll do a lot more on a homestead if you're trying to run your budget really tight. Why do we make the distinction between these two? Why do we bother trying to make a difference between convenient and inconvenient? Because when you understand what you're exchanging for that everything, it makes it a lot more valuable. You see, just because you choose this convenient transaction, this does not mean you understand what you have then purchased with your wealth, your effort, and your time. However, when you spend less wealth, but more effort and time, then you get into the realm of not just having the stuff on the homestead, the wealth on the homestead, you go into understanding it. Your understanding of a thing and its cost helps you make better decisions. You see, I could come here. Anybody could come here, not just me, anybody. Anybody could come here and spend more wealth than effort and time on their home and on their homestead. In fact, there are people who do a very convenient thing. This would be a very convenient transaction, and I apologize for my little black there. This and this and this are theoretically getting the whole thing done. Let's use the example of something, and I'll put another one down here, and then we'll use the example of something, okay? All right, so then since we're wanting to get a nice little spectrum, we've got very convenient, convenient, inconvenient, and very inconvenient on our transactions. And you see this one costs a little wealth, a lot of effort, and a lot of time. More time and more effort, but less wealth. Still 10, but a lot of time and a lot of effort. Now, what I need to do, say, is plow the field. Well, I can do all the plowing myself by hand. Okay, I can do that. That would require very little wealth, but it will require an immense amount of effort and a lot of time. Or I could get something I need, say a farming implement for, we'll just use a small little garden spot as our example, and the cost can go up and down from there, but a small garden spot. So I buy a tiller with more wealth, twice as much wealth as would have taken here at least. This is just a rough example, but it drastically cuts down on my time and my effort. Now I can also decide that, you know what, I'm going to get one of those fancy tillers, self-propelled and all that, and I'm gonna use that tiller, and I'm gonna hire somebody to do it for me, and I'm just gonna weed the garden and stuff like that, and then I'll have my garden spot. I'm just gonna do that. This is a convenient transaction. You're not doing the effort, so you have a lot less effort. You're just weeding and taking care of it after it's done, and then it requires a lot less time. It requires a bit more effort, but a lot less time. Now, the convenient one, the very convenient one, you know what that is? That's saying, you know what, I don't need to grow my own food or have a garden spot anyway. I'm going to go to the store and spend all my money that could go here and here, or even here, and I'm going to spend a little effort to go to the store and a little time, and I'm going to have my food. Here comes the problem. If you're a homesteader, you will never do that. You will never be able to buy your way out of a problem, because this person right here is not going to bother with the homestead. People that spend money on very convenient transactions are not likely to invest that money into a homestead. Why? Because all homestead stuff will fall under at least these three, and a lot of the times fall here, if not here. Because guaranteed, when you try to buy your way out of a problem that you need to understand to work your homestead, it'll most likely either be here or here that you end up at, because it may even be where you're spending 15 blocks and 10 of those are taken up with wealth, and you're still spending these other blocks on trying to work it yourself. The example can go as high as low as you want. In our brief, quick example, this person likely wouldn't even bother. If they did, they would hire somebody to not only run their garden, till their garden, but run their garden, instead of this person right here who may hire somebody to till their garden, but then go through the effort and time to go ahead and tend the garden afterward, after it's been plowed. But they're spending that extra money. Most of the time, inconvenient transactions are what you're going to deal with on the homestead, in my experience. If you're wanting to do it off-grid, and you're wanting to do it yourself, and you're wanting to have that experience and understanding yourself. Because buying your way out of problems, especially right here on the very convenient transaction, it's not going to work out for you for understanding your homestead, for getting your mind and understanding wrapped around the things that you need to do on that homestead, how to maintain those things that you've bought, because you can still go here and here and be able to maintain the things that you bought. Most of the time it's going to end up here, because you got to spend more effort and time and a little bit of wealth. But if you assess the different things you want on your homestead, and you're like, I want to know if this homestead thing's going to be worth my time and effort. Well, that depends what you're getting, and that's not really the crux of this video, but suffice to say, to satisfy some people that might want to be like, well, that makes it sound like it's inconvenient and hard to have a homestead. And to that I would say, well, it can be, but that's not the point of this video. It's not to discourage anybody. It's to help people understand and balance out what they're paying, and what they're paying for everything. Sure, you can do this very convenient transaction, but you gain nothing but the product. That's all you gain. You gain no understanding, no time. See, the difference between this and these is that this time spent here is not wasted, but often not used well. But the time even here is better spent, and the time here is of even more quality, and the time here is sometimes of exceptional quality. So look over the things you want in your homestead, and if you liked this one, we'll do another video kind of like this one on how to assess whether the things on your homestead are worth the cost that they have, because homesteads are notoriously more expensive in time and effort than they are in wealth. And if you are spending wealth and not regaining any effort and time by spending that wealth, like you're not regaining any blocks or losing any blocks here, you are making a bad deal. That's one quick way to look at it. If you spend more money and you don't get any effort or time for it, you're making a bad deal. Period. However, if you spend more money and you get this time exchange and effort exchange back for yourself, you can start to negotiate whether those would be good for you or not. Again, that's another video, and I hope this one is not necessarily discouraging, but gives you a way to assess the cost that you're spending on everything and which one of these transactions you want to make, because you make the choice. You get to decide if you want something very convenient as a homestead or if you want something very inconvenient as a homestead. And a lot of the times that's determined by wealth and your access to it, not necessarily your willingness or unwillingness to employ that wealth. So that's a separate issue in and of itself. But this is my little spiel about the cost of everything. If you guys liked it, let me know in the comments below. If not, that's okay too. You can let me know that in the comments below. And I'll see you next time here at the Rockhaven Homestead. Something probably a little less philosophical and a little more hands-on. All right. Have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.